If you happen to read some environmentalist literature, one of the goals to reduce the emissions would be for every single person to get into an electronic system that attaches your personal information to your bank account to a number of carbon credits. So you're allowed to purchase as much as you want, but everything actually costs a certain number of carbon credits. So, for example, when you're purchasing meat, you not only pay for the money, but you also have some carbon deducted from your wallet. And if you go overboard, then you just can't buy the meat anymore. Like you go to the supermarket, they scan your QR code, they know who you are, they know your bank account, they know what you purchased previously, and they will say, nope, we can't sell you this meat. Like the app just gives you an error, you can't do the transaction. And as dystopian as that sounds, like I already lived through it. Like in fact, everyone from the Soviet bloc lived through it, except we used to have rations. So there was no QR code or anything like that. The government gave you a piece of paper which allowed you to buy a certain amount of product per month. And even if you had money to buy more than you were allowed to buy, you couldn't buy it because they wouldn't sell it to you. So when you went to the baker and you wanted to buy another loaf of bread, even if you had the money to pay him, unless you had rations available on that card, on that punch card, he would not give you the bread. And it created a hilarious parallel economy of constant fetch quests where the coffee, the whiskey, and the Camel cigarette pack became more valuable than the other currency. Because what ended up happening, like, you would get a coffee pack from someone, like a Jacob's Kröning, but you weren't going to drink it, because it was more valuable than gold. What you could do with it is, let's say your car broke down, and you go to the mechanic, and the mechanic tells you, well, you need a new radiator, but unfortunately, there aren't any radiators available for us to sell. However, the mechanic does happen to have one radiator that he personally owns, but it's not up for sale. So you give him the coffee pack, and he gives you the radiator. And the mechanic doesn't drink the coffee pack either. Like, what he does is he goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, your daughter is sick, and she needs antibiotics, but unfortunately, we're all out. So then, the mechanic gives the Jacob's Kröning to the doctor, and the doctor all of a sudden happens to have some more antibiotics. And the doctor obviously doesn't drink the coffee either. Like, he keeps giving it to another person. It was like a way of exchanging favors, I suppose, in an economy where it doesn't matter if you have money because you can't spend it on anything. Think about it as being marooned on a lonely island when you have $1 million. That money is useless. Even if you're rich, you can't spend it anywhere. You can't use it to buy anything, so money becomes useless. And in the system that the environmentalists imagined, where you'd have like carbon credits and money, what would end up happening is that people would start using other resources, like other things, in order to trade. So even if like you would have a cashless society, like if you guys remember when the pandemic started, a lot of journalists and a lot of talking heads all of a sudden were discussing the idea of a cashless society. And like, what exactly does that have to do with the pandemic? Why? Oh, it's because like capitalism is evil because of money. Okay, so if you remove money, you make money useless, you end up with people trading all sort of bizarre things which become more valuable than money. So even if like the central bank would make it illegal for people to withdraw cash, and you'd have like the Chinese system of a digital yuan or whatever, and every transaction is being controlled, well, people would start using the Camel pack, the whiskey, the cigarettes, like whatever. They would use alternative things to trade. But not only that, like something even more interesting would happen. Society would become like an RPG where everyone is playing fetch quest. I already made a video where I explained this, but hear me out. So as you can see, every person is allowed a ration. So every person can buy 2.5 kilograms of meat, 1.3 kilograms of rice, 0.5 liters of vodka. Now not all people smoke and not all people drink alcohol. But what would end up happening is, because money is useless now, every single person would make sure that they buy all of the things that they're allowed, even if they don't need it. So even if you're not a smoker, you are going to buy those 12 packs of cigarettes every month. Why? Well, because, as I mentioned before, let's say you do happen to go to a mechanic, and the mechanic tells you that you need a new radiator, but you can't find one anywhere. He happens to have one from an old car of his, and he is willing to give you the radiator if you give him some vodka, because his son's birthday party is coming up and he wants to celebrate. Now, you drank your vodka, so what can you do? Well, you go to a neighbor, which, let's say, is a smoker. And the neighbor who's a smoker is willing to give you his vodka for cigarettes. So now you're giving the cigarettes to the neighbor. He gives you the vodka, you take the vodka, and you give it to the mechanic. And oftentimes, like, the fetch quest would be even longer than this, because let's say you don't have vodka, you have cigarettes, but you also don't have flour. Like, you're not the type of person that cooks. So you go to your neighbor, and let's say he doesn't have vodka, he is a smoker, but he also has a lot of flour. So you give the cigarettes, you take the flour, you go to another neighbor which has a wife that likes to cook, and he has vodka, but he's not a smoker, so you couldn't have traded the cigarettes to him. But you traded the cigarettes to the other neighbor who gave you the flour, and you're now giving the flour to this other neighbor who's giving you the vodka, and you're taking the vodka and you're giving it to the mechanic who's finally giving you the radiator. And that's pretty much how it works. Think about Path of Exile, if you will. Anyone who played that game knows that instead of having a currency, they're using consumables. So it's kind of like the currency that's useful, and you can always use it. I never wondered, though, like, if any of those cigarette packs or any of those coffee packs or whiskey, if they expired. I mean, I guess whiskey doesn't really have an expiration date, so there's no problem. But, like, I would be really curious if I could ask my parents whether or not those cigarette packs ever expired. Because, again, like, no one would smoke them. Like, you never saw anyone smoke them. You never saw anyone drink that coffee. It was just courtesy. It was an alternative courtesy. So that's what probably would happen. And I'm wondering if the environmentalists have a solution for this. Because think about it this way. Like, you have a lot of people that would just buy things they don't need with the idea that, what if I will end up needing them? I mean, even if I don't smoke cigarettes, what if I will know a guy that does smoke cigarettes and he can give me some meat in exchange? And by the way, there's actually good news when it comes to this system. It discourages people from having a divorce. Because, okay, you get a divorce and you take half their shit. But so what? Like, you can't use it on anything. Like, you can't use wealth. You can't use the money that you're getting. So you want to be in a relationship with someone because, as you can notice, you only get 1 pack of cooking oil. But if you're in a household with another person, well, now you have 2 packs of cooking oil. So you can see where this is going. Like, only if someone was legitimately unhappy with the relationship and couldn't continue under any circumstances would they divorce. Otherwise, like, people stuck together just so they can combine their rations. So, I guess that was the golden age of socialist Romania, as the government like to call it. Let me know what you guys think. And by the way, yeah, this picture is from Poland. It's not from Romania, but it's the same thing. Like, everything under the Iron Curtain was pretty much similar across the board. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.